I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities of Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Today, Tom and I are jacked up to review Cult of Luna's Vertikal. Vertikal.
It's got a K.
It has a K.
Maybe it's pronounced like that, I would think.
Vertical, however you want to call it.
Vertikal, yeah.
This is this is a metal album. It's from a Swedish band, Cult of Luna. They've been around for a while. This is their 6th album. Now, honestly, I've never been exposed to Cult of Luna before.
I haven't either.
We saw that their album was a metal album, and it was, had been released, so it made it to our list. We both listened to it, liked it, ended up pushing it up on our list, and here it is. And we're really excited because, we don't get a lot of metal albums, and we always enjoy when a really good metal album comes out, and this definitely fits that assessment. And metal is difficult to describe because there are so many subgenres to the genre of metal music. How do you go about pinning and putting one into a box? And one thing that we have advocated since day one is you should never really truly put an album in a very specific box, because then once the band gets out of that box, or do you still like it? I mean, it's too, once you brand a band too narrowly, it really doesn't allow them to exceed your expectations.
Like calling Torch a sludge band, and then they come out with Harmonicraft, and you're like, what do I call this?
Way more progressive than it is. So, albeit, this is a very, I think the way I want to go about describing the sound of Vertikal is this is much more, it's metal music aimed much more at the construction of atmosphere and songwriting rather than the precision and intensity of the instrumentation.
Definitely. These are more like compositions or orchestral movements of metal as they move along, and they build atmosphere slowly to these big climaxes, and that way some of the songs actually have more of a post-rock or post-metal setup. And that works really well for the sound. Now they do have a vocalist,
right?
And it does have some of those screamy vocals that sometimes Jake and I are a little critical of. I think they really work here.
I do too.
And I think that they blend well with some of the more low-key sung vocals on certain tracks like Mute Departure and the last track, Passing Through, highlight the vocalist's diversity, what he's able to accomplish there. And honestly, getting back to what I was saying about them almost being more like movements, I think the album separates itself very naturally as well. You have the first track, The One, which kind of flows into track 2, The Weapon, which is this big 9.5-minute long, just epic track.
One of 3 9-minute range tracks.
Exactly. And so that I kind of see as movement 1. Track 3, Vicarious Redemption, is pretty much its own whole thing. Right? From there, the sweep really introduces the next 2 songs, Synchronicity and Mute Departure, very well. And then you have this last movement of Disharmonia, just a quick, less than a minute long transitional track, followed by In Awe Of and Passing Through, which are just phenomenal capstones on this album.
In Awe Of is going to be one of my favorite tracks this year. That is just hands down. I love just what they're able to, the intensity that they're able to build in that song. You mentioned metal vocals, and that sometimes we have a problem with that. I think that the key to good metal vocals, when you have that real throaty guttural scream, which is definitely the main vocal presentation on Vertikal, I think the key to making it work is you have to keep it a little bit down in the mix.
Yes.
You can't have pop presentation where the vocals are the most loud thing in the mix. And in addition, you have to know when to have those vocals in place with the instrumentation and when not to. It's all about pacing.
And they nailed both of them.
They nailed both of them. I never ever felt like the vocals were too out of control on this one. If anything, they add where you have some truly beautiful sprawling instrumentation and songwriting. I feel like it gives it a little bit of grit, a little bit of dirt that says, hey, this is intense and this is why. And it gives it that warmth that you need to really get into the album. And that's such an important feature of a good album, is establishing a sense of warmth with the listener. It gives you a reason to pay attention to the music, and they do that really from the beginning of track 2, The Weapon, and I really feel like that is maintained throughout the rest of the album. Now, I will say, parts of Vicarious Redemption, it gets pretty meandering.
It starts that way,
especially in the first half, and I mean, and it really kind of throws you off because you're like, I thought this was a metal record, but here you have almost a sense of ambience and atmosphere, so much so that you're kind of wondering where they're going to take it, but by the end of it, they're rocking your face off, and I really like it. One thing that you mentioned to me, Tom, is that this album really focuses less on guitar solos and more on chords and chord progressions.
Riffs, using them for atmosphere, as you were saying. But also, you know, it all builds into how the movements are created and how they grow. Because a lot of these tracks, well, I mean, like track 2, The Weapon, starts out just in your face right away, but it's all about that just nice guitar riff. And the guitar riffs aren't even too complicated. They're just very well composed. They're very well put together with the several different tracks. I mean, even in track 6, Mute Departure, you have this kind of clean echoing guitar that is the foundation of the song to me. When I listen to it, it anchors me in, and it's one freaking note. They're not soloing all over the place. They're not noodling around. They don't need to, because they focus on songwriting rather than being self-indulgent. Now, I can't say the word self-indulgent, cough, excuse me, without talking about some of the lengths. Because there are a lot of long tracks on here. The album itself is like 66 minutes. To me, though, it pretty much feels warranted the whole time.
No, you know, we just reviewed David Bowie's The Next Day, and I said, that's a 53-minute album that feels like a 65-minute album. This is a 65-minute album that feels like a 45-minute album. Like, it flies by, and that's attributable to great songwriting and great album structure, great album composition. They made this album to flow, and it does extremely well. There is nothing I love more on this album than how they ended it. The last track on this album, Passing Through, is one of the darkest, creepiest songs I think I've ever heard, and it's a totally contrasting way to end this album. You know, this song never really. First of all, there's no screaming vocals. It's sung almost kind of like a Trent Reznor kind of, you know, Trent Reznor's voice,
almost kind of whispery, kind of washed in the mix.
And you know, it focuses on just this very simple guitar riff it's a slower tempo song, and it's all about mood and atmosphere, and it just ends the album on just such a, you know, moody, dark note that it just sends you away with just like, I want to listen to this more.
Yeah, and it's like that part in a scary movie where you're waiting for something to jump out at you, and then it never does, which is even better.
And then it makes you want to listen to it over and over and over again, which I plan to do for the rest of the year. I'm going 92 on this one.
I am also going 92.
Nice. I think this is the definition of a good metal album, what we're really looking for in metal music. I really think that this is just, I could put this on a shelf and say Vertikal is, you know, like the metal album I want to recommend to everyone when you're talking about what's a good metal album. So right now, this is the album to beat from 2013. Have you listened to Vertikal? Are you a big Cult of Luna fan? As we said earlier, you know, we really haven't been exposed to Cult of Luna before, but I guarantee you we're going to listen to their stuff now.
Yep.
So let us know at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. Also, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what you're into from 2013 and what you would like to see us review. Cult of Luna, we've heard from no one, so hopefully this is a surprise for you guys. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.